Hey everyone, this is MacBricks, and I'm here on the Death Star with Rich Boy J, and here's another episode of Your Questions Answered.
Hey guys, it's Rich Boy J here back in with another video, and this is going to be episode 19 of Your Questions Answered. Shout out to MacBricks for that intro. Like I said, guys, if you want to have your own custom intro on this series, just go ahead, make an unlisted YouTube video of it, send it to me, the link, and I'll make sure it's in the next video. I just want to make sure it is appropriate, won't get my video demonetized or anything like that. But yeah, be creative with it, show yourself off, show your channel off, whatever you want to do, just do something cool for the channel. I'd love to give you guys some extra exposure, and I think it's fun for people to see that. Moving forward, Your Questions Answered is a Q&A series that I do here on this channel. If you want to see your questions answered on this video, make sure you go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section. Make sure it's Lego, Star Wars, or Lego Star Wars related, and then check back next week to see if you made the cut. Without further ado, let's jump into the first question. First question comes from Entered. He says, so we know what parts you'd like to exist, but what about part recolors? Is there any particular element you'd like to see released in a new color? Yes. So the part that I'm probably most anticipating for Lego to release at some point is actually the 4460 1x2x3 slope in dark orange. I am aware that Lego did release this at one point. It was in one very small Harry Potter set. The amount of this part on Bricklink is very sparse, so they haven't made it in such a long time. I think it is sufficient to say this would be a new part, especially since in the old part, they've kind of phased out that particular type of design of it. They have a new updated design for that part. But nonetheless, the reason I really want this part is for a future Geonosis mock. I think I've told you guys many times around this series that if money were no object, my ultimate mock would be a Geonosis mock. I would love to do something large scale that encompasses all the scenes from the end of episode 2, whether it be the droid factory, whether it be the big arena battle, of course the big ground battle that you see between the Separatists and the clones, and then finally that little battle between Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Count Dooku towards the end of the film. I would love to recreate all of that in one large, massive mock. The problem is a lot of those slopes in dark orange just don't exist yet, so it would be really difficult to build the mountains. So I'm really anticipating Lego doing that at some point. Hopefully it'll come up on Lug Bulk, because that would make it very easy to get a large amount of those slopes at one time. And I really would just love to build Geonosis at some point. So whenever Lego decides to make a lot of those parts more readily available, I'll be right on top of that Geonosis mock. Next question is by MacBricks. He says, when you see a cool minifigure in a less than adequate set, do you buy the whole set and part it out, or do you just buy the minifigs aftermarket, i.e. eBay or Bricklink? I tend to just end up buying the set. My rationale is, one, I just kind of can't help it. I've had the point where I buy most Lego Star Wars sets, if not all of them. So that's just kind of my personal thing. But my other idea behind it is I'm going to spend probably a pretty high price on the minifigure anyways, so I may as well just buy the set, and then like I'm getting more value for my money, and then I'll just part the set out and then use those parts for something else. And if I do ever come around to when I built the set, the parts are in my collection, so I have that option as well. The only exception I can think of is just maybe some older sets that I have no interest in owning. For example, that Captain Rex's ATTE, I bought all the clones from it, and I have no interest in having a Captain Rex's ATTE. So some of the sets where it's not even that it's inadequate, I just don't care to have it in my collection, I'll just not worry about it. But for some that, you know, could serve some sort of function in my collection at some point, I'll leave that door open by just buying the set, parting it out, and keep the minifigs from it. In fact, I feel like at this point, if it's not for something that's like in one of the new movies, I'm probably not going to keep the set in my collection. I just gotten to the point where I either have a really good mock of it or I don't really need it. So yeah, that's kind of the position I'm in. Next question is by Batarang. He says, what's lightsaber style and color would you prefer Rey to have in episode 9, and do you think we'll get all the Knights of Ren in sets? This is such a great question. First part of it I want to address is the Rey lightsaber thing. I personally would love to see Rey with some sort of double-bladed lightsaber. I think that would be most consistent with her skills with the staff. Obviously, up to this point, she hasn't used it because she just kind of stumbled upon Anakin's lightsaber. But I think moving forward, if Rey got her chance to just choose what lightsaber she wanted, she would probably want something that matches the weapon she's presumably been using her entire life. And I think that the double-bladed lightsaber would work for that. It would kind of continue the trend of us having unique lightsabers in this new trilogy. Like Kylo Ren's lightsaber is obviously very unique, and it would be cool if our protagonist got a very unique lightsaber as well. As for the color, the fanboy in me really would love for it to be yellow, akin to Bash Lashan from Knights of the Old Republic, one of my favorite video games of all time. If not, I don't really think it matters. Maybe green, just so it's different from the Anakin lightsaber that she was using, but yellow would be my preference, and then probably green after that. I like green lightsabers more than I like blue lightsabers. Moving on to the second part of the question, he says, do you think we'll get all the Knights of Ren in sets? And this is an interesting question because I'm not convinced at this point that we're going to even see the Knights of Ren. I think they had an opportunity to do it in episode 8 with the Praetorian Guards. They probably could have easily just said, oh, these are the Knights of Ren, and then had them turn on Kylo whenever he defeated Snoke. But then you kind of run into some storyline inconsistencies, like why would they ally themselves more with Snoke than Kylo if Kylo kind of like took down the Jedi Order with them and then moved to the First Order. So I do think there's some way you probably could have fit them in, but I'm not convinced we're going to see them in episode 9. I think the fact that JJ is directing it gives me hope, and so far as he's the one who, I imagine he's the one that came up with the idea. Like, he did episode 7, they mentioned it in episode 7, but I don't know if it's necessarily a given that we're even going to see the Knights of Ren. So I think if we do see them in some capacity in episode 9, it'll probably be somewhat important, just on account of they mentioned it before. And if we do see it, then I say definitely we're going to get them in some sort of set. LEGO's been pretty good recently with these new movies and producing every important and semi-important minifigure in sets up front. Like, if this were back in the old days, it would be a while before we got a lot of these minifigures, but they're much better nowadays about putting a lot of minifigures in a lot of sets and making sure we have a pretty holistic collection of minifigures in the movies right as they come out. So I definitely appreciate that. But yeah, I would like to see the Knights of Ren in sets. It'd be a cool little collection of minifigures to put right alongside Kylo. So hopefully we'll get that. Next question is by Papa Oatsy. He says, do you think the Lego hood piece should be remade? Yes and no. So I think the biggest problem with the Lego hood piece is the fact that it has a little connection at the very bottom. I think that it kind of ruins the aesthetic of it. It doesn't look correct, especially when you think about the Jedi robes where it's just a hood and an open robe. It's not a closed robe, so that's kind of problematic. So yeah, I think that could be improved. I think for certain characters like Obi-Wan in episode 4, he needs a completely new mold altogether. His hood is a lot more pointy and it's just shaped a lot more different. So I would definitely like to see one for him. And I mean, they've just been using that hood piece for a long time. I think that it's overdue for a change, but in the meantime, it's not super important. Like, the hood doesn't look terrible, so it's not the top of my list for things that Lego needs to improve on. But I definitely do see them at some point down the line remaking the Lego hood piece just for Obi-Wan alone, and then also getting rid of the connection at the very bottom. Otherwise, I think the shape of it is fine. Next question is by Elias13. He says, would you ever consider building a micro figure mock? What mock would you build? No, I have no interest in building a micro figure mock. I love minifigure scale. Like, you guys can see in like pretty much all of my builds, like, if I can make it minifigure scale, it's gonna be minifigure scale. I think that, I don't know, minifigure scale is, this is ideal for me. Like, I can't see myself getting emotionally invested in a micro figure mock. It wouldn't touch me as much. And even thinking about, like, the Lego Hogwarts castle that just recently came out, and it honestly concerns me because I don't want to see Star Wars go in that direction. Like, could you imagine if we got a big Star Wars Master Builder series set that had micro figures in it? Like, I'd be very disappointed. So, I mean, I know a lot of people probably like the Hogwarts set, and that's fine. I'm not going to take anything away from them, but it does concern me. I do hope that Lego doesn't start trending that way with a lot of these big location sets. Like, I love what they did with Cloud City. If Cloud City ended up being a nano figure or a micro figure set, I would have been very disappointed. So when it comes to sets, absolutely not. When it comes to mocks, also absolutely not. Jacob Brown asks, do you like the new dual-molded Rebel pilot helmets or the older helmets better? Yes, so this has been a point of contention for a lot of people recently with the unveiling and release of those new Rebel pilot helmets in the most recent X-Wing set for Biggs and Luke. And people, I think generally I've seen a pretty negative reaction to it. Like, some people are really on board with it, but it seems like a lot of people are kind of jarred by it. They think they look too big, too cartoony, etc., etc. I love them. I love the way they look. I really appreciate the fact that the visor is put into the helmet. I think that when we got those Resistance pilot helmets, I was just like, man, I really hope they start doing this with the original trilogy pilot helmets. And I'm glad that they actually finally started doing it. I think that if you guys look at pictures of the Rebel pilot helmet, like go online, just look up a picture of Luke in his Rebel pilot helmet. You realize that it's not a small helmet, like at all. It's a pretty big and bulky helmet. The original helmet is way too form-fitting. Like it fits a Lego person's head almost like short hair, whereas with the newer helmets it looks much more bulky and like a helmet. If you guys like look at the TIE pilot helmets, for example, those look very bulky, and I don't think a lot of people have an issue with that because they I guess have a better memory of those being bulky in the movies. But when they were designing that TIE pilot helmet, they used the Rebel helmet as a base and just like put the Stormtrooper face on it. So with that being said, that the Rebel helmet should be at least somewhat comparable in size to the TIE pilot helmet. And if you don't have a problem with the TIE pilot helmet, then I think by virtue of that, you shouldn't have a problem with the Rebel pilot helmet. And with that being said, yeah, I do love these new helmets. The only problem I have is the fact that they waited so long to do them. Like, think about all the new helmets we've gotten since Lego has, in like the past year or so. Like, we've just gotten so many various types of helmets, like since Rogue One, especially, like, and they're all obsolete now. Like, they're all out of date. So moving forward, you know, I'm hoping they're going to keep with the trend of these styles of helmets. It was really disappointing for me to see that Blue Leader and Talk Merrick in the Advent calendar didn't get this helmet, and I thought that was pretty unacceptable because these sets came out around the same time, so clearly they had at least some plan of doing those dual molded helmets around when this set would have been planned, like you would think so, right? And they didn't put it in this set, the Advent calendar, which is extremely puzzling to me because the Merrick figure in the set doesn't have a face with the visor printed on it. So it's almost like why even include the helmet? Like, you have no use for it. There's no way to have him with the helmet on and have it look correct because there's not a visor in the helmet or a visor printed on his face. So I thought that was kind of weird. But yeah, moving forward, I really do hope Lego goes all in with these helmets, and we start seeing a lot of sets with a lot of these helmets. My ideal circumstance would be if they just released like a Rebel pilot battle pack that came with 4 new pilots with helmets that we don't have in the new style, and then I think that would just be best case scenario for me. Alright guys, that's going to finish up the video this week. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to see your questions answered in this video, just leave it in the comment section. Like I said, make sure it's Lego Star Wars or Star Wars related, and then check back next week to see if you made the cut. Like I always say guys, if you like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.